Orange Arausio made its entrance into Roman history in 103 BC when it suffered a defeat. Having been conquered less than 25 years earlier by the Romans, the region was invaded by a Germanic people, the Cimbri. 2 years later, the more hardened Roman army wiped them out. The impressive outer facade of the Roman theatre stage building is 103 metres wide and 36 metres high, with 1.8 metre thick walls. The ground floor is pierced with 17 doors, framed by pilasters, while the third floor is adorned with 21 blind arcades. The monument is composed of tiered seats, a small semicircular level space between the stage and the first row of seats, accessible from 2 side passageways, and a stage building with a high stage wall that separated the dressing rooms from the low platform where the actors performed. Like many of the theatres built in the imperial period, the one in Orange is a unitary construction, the length of whose stage and annexes is equal to the diameter of the cavea. The rebirth of the ancient theatre of Orange dates back to 1869, when 3 local dignitaries came up with the idea of a Roman festival on an open-air site, whose acoustics had proved to be remarkable. On ground level, the wall is adorned with a series of pilasters and has 17 doorways. The difference between the 2 limestones is clearly distinguishable. The monumental niche today houses a colossal statue, 3.5 meters high, clad in the armor of Roman emperors. It was reconstructed from fragments and replaced in the niche in 1951 on the instructions of Jules Formigère, who believed that it represented Augustus. The stage wall of the theatre is the only one to have survived so well in Europe. At the foot of the vast stage building, the orchestra is defined by the rectilinear front of the proscenium and a semicircular paved space. The cavea comprises 3 banks of seats. Only a few sections of the first rows of seats are ancient. Bordering the last row is a broad gangway with 8 exits leading to an underground corridor, served at either end by 2 radial staircases that begin on the ground floor. As early as the Middle Ages, the interior of the monument was almost certainly occupied by houses built amongst the tiered seats, backing onto the stage wall and its various rooms. The Roman theatre of Orange, like the one in Arles, was one of the first monumental public buildings constructed in the Gallo-Roman province of Narbonne in the early days of the empire. Local stone was used for most of it. The fabric of the building is made out of blocks of yellow limestone and a harder white limestone. The decoration of the facade of the stage wall, on the other hand, was carved out of marble and granite, imported from various parts of the Mediterranean. From the 18th to the 20th century, the Roman theatre in Orange, classified as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1981, underwent an extensive series of renovation and scientific research programs. To establish their superiority, the Roman authorities decided to equip their colonies with an urban centre that complied with the precepts of the most progressive town planning of their time. But this city would have to wait around 30 years before it obtained any real semblance of monuments, and almost certainly over a century before the best-known buildings in Orange materialized in the form we're familiar with. Vestiges of the building are being analysed, and an inventory of ancient and modern texts and images referring to the theatre is being made. This documentation will be employed in an attempt to outline the history of the monument, which won't only be a history of its use, but of the values for which it stood. The earliest studies undertaken on the theatre concentrated on the shape of its stage building in antiquity. The study currently being carried out considers the monument comprehensively and in all periods, ancient, medieval, and modern. The ruins of the temple are situated in the hemicycle adjoining the top of the theatre. From here, there's a partial view of the bottom of the stage. The theatre was at the centre of the city and played a central role in the life of its citizens, who spent a large part of their free time there. The Roman authorities not only saw the theatre as a means of spreading Roman culture to the colonies, but also as a way of distracting them from all political activities. The shows were full-blown entertainment and lasted all day. The Romans weren't keen on Greek tragedy, which had inspired early Roman authors, but preferred a rather lighter form of entertainment. Mime pantomime, poetry readings, and above all, the Atellana, a kind of farce rather like the Commedia dell'arte. The common people were especially fond of spectacular effects, so the stage sets were extremely important. Situated outside the boundaries of the ancient town on the Griffin Way, the Triumphal Arch of Orange has 3 arches. The overall structure is 19.5 metres long, 8.4 metres wide, and 19.2 metres high. The main facades point to the north and south, while the smaller lateral facades look east and west. Each facade is adorned with 4 fluted Corinthian columns. It's decorated with low reliefs commemorating the establishment of the Pax Romana. In Orange, the Romans built the Triumphal Arch over a 5-year period, from 22 to 27 AD. It was erected after Caesar's victory in 49 BC. In spite of severe weathering, it's the finest of its kind in France. The coffering is a honeycomb pattern with 15 rows of 9 cells under the central vault and 10 rows of 13 hexagons under the 2 side arches. Orange Arausio, the colony of Roman citizens, was established at the expense of the native people. As was customary in those days, the Roman colony was made up of a chief town and a surrounding territory. The inhabitants were free, with the exception of slaves, and enjoyed a privileged legal status. The majority of these settlers were demobilized legionnaires who had previously served in the legions. It was founded in the period between Julius Caesar's assassination and the establishment of a new political system in Rome, the empire headed by Augustus, after he'd put an end to civil war in 31 BC. The entire structure measures 19.57 meters long by 8.4 meters wide, standing at a height of 19.21 meters. Each facade has 4 semi-engaged Corinthian columns. The four facades are oriented to the four cardinal points. This south facade is less well preserved than the opposite face, the north. It's decorated with various reliefs of military themes, including naval battles, spoils of war, and Romans battling Germanics and Gauls. Once there was a bronze quadriga, a 4-horse chariot, and 4 statues on the top, while there's a representation of a Gallic battle on the frieze. Below, on either side, are trophies from Gallic vessels. The Roman arches became increasingly elaborate over the centuries. They were at first very simple, symbolic temporary gateways to the city, being built of brick or stone with a semicircular arched heading and hung with trophies of captured arms. Later arches were built of high-quality marble with a large central arch in the middle, its ceiling treated as a barrel vault, and sometimes 2 smaller ones on each side, adorned with a complete architectural order of columns and entablature, enriched with symbolic or narrative bas-reliefs and crowned with bronze statues, often a quadriga. The festive Corinthian order was the usual one. After Julius Caesar had put an end to civil war in 31 BC, the following years were sorely marked by civil strife and the need for military leaders to offer substantial compensation to their troops. The establishment of colonies was both a way of rewarding soldiers for services rendered and of maintaining their loyalty. In 1999, during excavations carried out north of the Triumphal Arch on the edge of the Griffin Way, fabulous archaeological remains were found, which were part of a Roman necropolis. Many treasures were found, including mausoleums, funeral plaques, offerings such as vases and goblets, and heads of Bacchus and Cyclops. All these findings increased the prestigious Roman heritage in Orange. The Triumphal Arch of Orange is protected for various reasons. It was first classified in 1840 on the list of historic buildings. Since 1981, it's been reproduced on the World Heritage List in Europe.